9,000 years ago, while much of the world was still nomadic, the hills of Mehrgar were home to a sophisticated society. These early settlers were already cultivating cotton for textiles and using flint drills to perform early dental surgery. By 3500 BC, this knowledge moved into the river plains, resulting in the Indus Valley civilization. They constructed cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa on a strict grid system, featuring multi-story brick homes and covered drainage networks that utilized manholes for regular maintenance. This foundation enabled centuries of peaceful expansion. During the Maurya and Gupta eras, Indian thinkers calculated the Earth's circumference, pioneered the concept of zero, and developed metallurgical techniques that produced iron so pure it remains rust-free 16 centuries later. By the first millennium, the region controlled the world's primary trade routes for silk, spices, and gemstones. Because these eras prioritized trade and intellectual investment over the construction of massive defensive fortifications or standing armies, this vast accumulation of capital became an increasingly visible lure for neighboring powers. Nalanda University served as the central intellectual hub of this era. It was a massive residential campus where 10,000 scholars from across Asia studied a curriculum ranging from astronomy and mathematics to advanced medicine. In 1193, the commander Bakhtiyar Khilji reached Bihar. Upon discovering that Nalanda's medical knowledge surpassed the capabilities of his own physicians, he reportedly ordered the entire university and its residents destroyed. The university's library was so vast that when it was set on fire, the collection of manuscripts continued to burn for 3 full months, turning thousands of years of scientific research into ash. The smoke from Nalanda signaled the end of India's classical age. The civilization was forced out of its period of peaceful inquiry and into a brutal, centuries-long struggle for physical and cultural survival. Invasions shifted from border raids to the systematic targeting of the region's wealth. Rulers like Mahmud of Ghazni focused specifically on sacred sites like the Somnath Temple, stripping away gold and gemstones to fund their own empires in the west. At the fortress of Chittor, the population faced total destruction. Rather than submit to the invading army, 16,000 women committed jauhar, choosing death by fire, while the men performed a final suicidal charge into the enemy ranks. This era of loss forced the rise of a new kind of resistance. Maharana Pratap rejected his royal status and lived in the Aravalli jungles for decades, coordinating a guerrilla campaign with local indigenous tribes to prevent the total annexation of his land. In the south, Shivaji Maharaj pioneered naval warfare and a code of administration that protected farmers and merchants. His successor, Sambhaji Maharaj, later endured 40 days of physical torture by the Mughals, refusing to trade his sovereignty or his faith for a pardon. While cities were leveled and political centers were dismantled, this consistent refusal to accept absolute foreign rule allowed local social and cultural structures to endure in the shadow of conquest. In the 1700s, the threat changed from military conquest to corporate extraction. The British East India Company utilized local infighting to transition from a small trading firm into a governing body that controlled Indian production and tax collection. Under British management, the 1770 Bengal famine resulted in the deaths of an estimated 10 million people. Simultaneously, the company systematically crippled local competition, frequently mutilating the thumbs of master weavers to ensure the dominance of British-made textiles. Oppression reached a boiling point at Jallianwala Bagh in 1919. British troops trapped a crowd of peaceful protesters in a walled garden and fired into the mass of men, women, and children without warning, leaving bullet holes that are still visible in the brickwork today. This brutality triggered a nationwide response. Mahatma Gandhi organized millions of citizens into a movement of nonviolent non-cooperation, using peaceful protests and economic boycotts to make the British administration's basic functions impossible to maintain. This was met by a parallel path of armed resistance. Revolutionary figures like Bhagat Singh accepted the gallows to incite public action, while Subhash Chandra Bose formed a formal liberation army to challenge British forces on the battlefield. By 1946, facing a total breakdown of internal civil order and a growing mutiny within its own military forces, the British Empire finally signaled its withdrawal. When independence finally arrived in August 1947, it was immediately accompanied by the trauma of partition. The land was divided by a new border, triggering the largest and most violent mass migration in modern history. This arbitrary line turned millions of people into refugees overnight. Families were separated and entire communities were destroyed as they fled toward makeshift camps that stretched across the new border. In the middle of this crisis, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel faced the task of integrating 562 separate princely states. Through a combination of diplomatic negotiation and firm administrative pressure, he was able to unify the territory into a single republic. This unification prevented the total balkanization of the subcontinent, transforming a collection of over 500 mini-kingdoms into a cohesive democratic state in less than 3 years. The new nation began in 1947 with an economy that had been depleted for centuries. The early space program was so underfunded that its first rocket components were transported to the launch site on the back of bicycles. By 2023, that same space program became the first in history to successfully land a mission on the moon's south pole, achieving a landing in a region that had caused multiple failures for the world's most established space agencies. India has now transitioned into the world's fifth largest economy. It currently leads the globe in digital transaction volume and serves as a primary hub for international space launches and software development. These 11,000 years demonstrate a recurring pattern. While external forces can dismantle a nation's wealth and infrastructure, they cannot extinguish the continuity of its identity if the population consistently chooses to rebuild from the ruins.